The average person is said to spend 15 minutes in the bathroom. Why not take advantage of that time and learn something new? Presenting the 15-minute podcast on weird facts, crazy details, and funny particulars that you'll be able to enjoy while you're taking a on your free time. Welcome to This Shit with Sam Butler. Welcome to another episode of The Shit Podcast. This is a special episode. I'm by myself today, but I'm here. We're taken back by what's happening in Ukraine, the Russian invasion. I thought this was a good opportunity to do an episode on it, just because it's something that's so fresh. It's on everybody's mind. Stuff is happening. And I don't know about you, but I'm beside myself on what's happening. I mean, it's something that you would see movies and stuff, and you would think that's the worst case scenario. Well, that's where we're at. And now a lot of people think that it's just a beef between Russia and Ukraine right now, and I don't want to really get involved with the details of why or where I stand on it, because there's opposing views, although I think the majority of the world is standing with Ukraine. With that being said, what I want to talk about in this episode is all the shit, facts, the weird facts. And they're not so weird this time around. They're more like interesting facts, interesting developments that are happening. We see a lot of things happening, but we see a lot of unexpected heroism. And a lot of the heroism is coming from people that are civilians, people that are actually taking up arms. They're standing their ground. They're defending their country. They're defending their independence. And we know Russia invaded Ukraine February 24th. And this was something that had been building up for a while. And we could see coming for a few weeks or months before it happened. But it happened. So now that it happened, there's a lot of heroism that is unexpected. And I want to talk a little bit about that in this episode. The first example that I have is a video that went viral on a lady, a Ukrainian lady, that stands up to an armed Russian soldier. And she pretty much is asking him what he's doing in her country. And he responds to her that he's patrolling or taking guard. And she says, "No, you're invading us. You're here with weapons. Look what you're doing to my country." And the guy responds that he's not there to hurt her. And she says, "On the contrary, you're destroying my country." And the interesting thing is that she says, "Why don't you put some sunflower seeds in your pocket so that when you die, at least some sunflowers will grow?" Which was a pretty intense insult that this is not common. I've never heard that before. So I think that's one of the reasons it went viral, is because it was such a clever way to say, "I hope you die." And we see that this bravery and courage is coming from people that we'd normally expect to flee the country. Instead, they're standing their ground and they're holding their ground. And it's impressive because nobody expected Ukraine to be able to withstand an attack from such a powerful nation. And that leads me to my second example of incredible heroism. And there's a video that went viral of a man that is actually picking up a landmine with his bare hands. And he's picking up this landmine and he's carrying it across the road into the forest so it wouldn't detonate accidentally and killing people. And he's doing this with his bare hands, and the whole time he's smoking a cigarette. So he's got both of his hands occupied, and he's got a little cigarette lit, and he's carrying a landmine into the forest away from general population, which to me is another example of someone who's willing to risk their life to do the right thing. And we can take courage and by his example and say that this person is willing to risk their life for the wellness of others. Very, very motivational. It also motivates us to be appreciative of the things that we do have. We don't have this conflict happening in our countries unless, we sometimes take our life for granted. So to see these ordinary people stand up is a motivation for us to appreciate the little things in our lives, appreciate our loved ones. The third example is a gentleman that wanted to stop a Russian convoy, and he did it by standing in the middle of the road. Now, I think that this might not be the brightest idea, to stand in the middle of the road and try and stop a convoy. Nothing is to say that that convoy wouldn't run over him, but they didn't. They had to go around him. And you watch this video, and it's one of those videos that went viral. And this is being likened to the example of the gentleman in Tiananmen Square in China in 1989 that stands in front of a tank and keeps the tank from advancing. So we see that people are risking their lives to avoid the advance of this invasion in their country. The fourth example is a young man named Vitali Shakun. He was a Marine that wanted to blow up a bridge, and I guess they had come to the consensus that the bridge needed to be destroyed, and he volunteered himself to go and plant the bombs, knowing that he probably wouldn't make it out in time. He still went ahead and planted those bombs. And by planting those bombs, one of the Facebook messages out there said some of his soldiers, some of his brothers in arms, posted about it, that he had sent them a message that he had to blow the bridge, and a few seconds later, the bridge was blown, and he was killed in the incident. He also received an award posthumously from President Zelinski for his bravery and his self-sacrifice. So this is such a big deal that people are willing to throw themselves in front of tanks. They're willing to throw themselves on bridges that are going to be destroyed for the good of their country, which is very impressive. And we know that he didn't make it. Another one of the videos or memes that you see that went viral during this last 7 days is of the beauty queen Anastasia Lena. It was said that she gave up her crown, which she didn't have a crown at the time because she was a queen in 2015. But all of the social media outlets are really glorifying the fact that she was a queen, and now she was seen in tactical clothing, carrying a weapon, and it was speculated that she had rejoined the military. Apparently, military service is part of the requirements in that country, so she rejoined the military to fight for her country. And this was something that was very motivational and inspirational to the people of Ukraine, to see someone that really had the ability to escape taking up arms. Later, it was discovered that she really didn't join the military, and the pictures of her in tactical gear weren't even related to the war. That was pictures of her in tactical gear because she was big into airsoft and airsoft competitions. But later she did explain that she put that picture up to motivate people as an influencer on social media. So although it's not as romantic as we're thinking it is on social media, we see that she's still doing her part behind the keyboard to motivate and inspire people to get involved. Whether that's heroism or not, that's up for debate. But I think that she could very well have fled the country, and she could very well have stayed silent on the subject, and especially in countries where freedom of speech isn't such a big deal. I mean, you could find yourself in trouble after the fact, and so for that, I applaud her, that she's at least trying to encourage and motivate people to stay and defend their country. The next example that I have is the ghost, the Kiev ghost. And there's a lot of rumors and speculation about this fighter pilot that's Ukrainian, flying a MiG-29. The first days of the conflict, it was said that he shot down 6 Russian fighter planes, this making him the first ace since World War II. You have to shoot down 5 enemy aircraft to be considered an ace. Well, he shot down 6 is what they're saying. Some reports are saying that he's shot down up to 14 at this point. Now, the issue is that we don't know if this is true or not true. What we do know is that it is a big motivator for the people of Ukraine, because he's become this legend. And there's a picture of him in a fighter jet in the cockpit wearing a helmet that's supposedly him. And we know that the ex-president of Ukraine, I want to get his name right because I think I messed it up in Spanish. I want to say Poroshenko, posted it on his Twitter. So this was so that people could see. Now, it's later been debunked. This is not a picture of the ghost. This is a picture of a soldier trying out a new helmet in training, and it was used as a picture. There's also pictures of the supposed ghost, and you could tell that they've been kind of modified with Photoshop. You can tell by the aircraft in the background being Canadian Air Force aircraft, not Ukrainian Air Force aircraft. And it's said now that they've discovered that the actual face that they've given this character belongs to a doctor in Argentina. So that's a pretty fun fact there, I guess. But does he exist or not exist? I mean, he would be like a real-life Batman if he did exist. But it is an interesting story, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to think about. We don't know if that's the case or not. We do know that there's been some casualties on the Russian side, and we do know that they've had a more difficult time than they anticipated in overtaking Ukraine, because they really expected Ukraine to just kind of give up, and Ukraine didn't give up. As a matter of fact, one of the arguments that the Russian President Putin was saying was that Ukrainians really wanted to be Russian, but the government just didn't want to let it happen. Well, we're seeing by all of the resistance by civilians and people who are not involved in war, how that's absolutely not true. They are not wanting to be governed by the Russian government. We're going to talk about the 13. And I think a lot of people saw memes on this. You saw a lot of computer screens and so on and so forth, that a lot of signs that said warships, go fuck yourself. And that is due to the 13. They were on Snake Island in the Black Sea. Some Russian boats show up, and there's a radio transmission where they're urged to surrender, and the 13 say, warships, go fuck yourself. And it was thought that they had died in the invasion of Snake Island, but later it was reported that they're actually alive and they're prisoners of war. And so that's a pretty interesting story. They're supposed to be awarded the highest honors, medals, Ukrainian medals for their valor posthumously, but they're still alive. So who knows if I'm sure they'll still get their medals. An unexpected hero of this conflict is someone that really, I think it got all of us by surprise, and we're talking about Elon Musk. Mikhailo Fedorov, the vice premier prime minister of Ukraine, tweeted to Elon Musk that while you're trying to occupy Mars and you're trying to send rockets into Mars and bring them back to Earth, we're being invaded by Russia. Please make Starlink available. Now, we know that in war, propaganda is a big thing, and one of the first things that invaders would do is take out communications. So the fact that Elon Musk would make this available to Ukraine, it makes him a hero in my book. This guy has allowed Ukraine to utilize broadband internet connection through the Starlink system, and responded. Starlink is up and running in Ukraine, and more units are on their way. And apparently a truckload of receivers arrived in Ukraine, to which the Prime Minister of Ukraine thanked him for his help. So that's a very unexpected hero in this war. And it also shows how War is completely different now. Communication, this will be one of the most documented wars in history. It's one of the scariest wars in history, but it's one of the most documented wars in history. Two fellas that had the opportunity to escape and didn't. They had the resources to escape and didn't. Is world champion boxer brothers, Vladimir and Vitali Klitschko. They're quoted as saying, "We're ready to die." Vladimir is the world champion. His brother is the mayor of Ukraine, also a former world champion. And they're willing to defend their homeland, even if this means dying. And they're urging the international community to also help out. So these guys are using their influence and their fame to create this awareness of their situation. And for that, I think it's pretty awesome. An unexpected hero, I think, of this conflict so far is the Russian people. There's actually protests going on in Russia. Now, we see that there's people protesting in the United States all the time, but it's not the same. It's not the same at all. We have the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and we have a right to protest, and we have a right to assemble. That doesn't necessarily exist in Russia. As a matter of fact, these peaceful protests that are happening, and they're happening in cities all over Russia, is pretty much people showing up with cardboard signs that say no to war, say no to war, let's not fight, no more war. And yet police are in riot gear, they're arresting them. There's over 6,500 people that have been arrested so far. And now you think about being arrested in Russia, it's not the same as being arrested in the United States. These guys are famous for being exiled to Siberia. And so it shows that they're really brave in standing up to their own government on this conflict. And the last hero of this that I will cover on this podcast is, of course, President Vladimir Zelinski. Now, Vladimir is the same as Vladimir. It's just in Ukrainian, which is ironic because both presidents have the same first name, Vladimir Zelinski and Vladimir Putin. But a little bit about him: he's a comedic actor, which as a comedian we're all like, yeah, because comedians take risks all the time. They speak out against injustices. They speak out against governments, and in some countries, like I mentioned previously, this is something that could lead you to long prison terms. It could lead you to a lot of hardship in your life. And so this President Zelensky actually came to power with an example of life imitating art. He was in a sitcom that was the setting in the sitcom was that he was a teacher that was unhappy with government corruption and decided to run for office. Well, life imitating art is that he actually decided to run for office and won by a 73% vote. And so he becomes president. He gets criticized that he's a weak president. He does not know how politics should operate. He's very new to this. But obviously in the last few days, we've seen that this guy is a stand-up guy because he is entrenched with his people. He was offered to be evacuated by the United States, and his response was, "I do not need an evacuation plan. I need anti-tank ammunition." So he's dug in. He was quoted as saying, "I know I might die, but I'm going to die with my soldiers," which is a good example of what the chief, commander-in-chief of an army is. In a lot of countries, the president is the commander-in-chief, the supreme commander-in-chief. In this case, Zelensky is showing that he is the supreme commander-in-chief. He's also utilizing his experience as an actor, as a comedian, as a performer to reach out to the international community. And he's very eloquent in his way of speaking. He's very good at communicating via social media. And this is what makes him very powerful in this type of a war, because all of the propaganda, all of the stuff that's being said, he's able to contradict. He's able to show he's still alive. There was rumors that he had died, and he's alive and well, but he's there. He's tired, but he's with his people. And for that, I think that he is an excellent example of what a commander-in-chief should be. And of course, this is something that is tragic. And we know that there's a lot of wars in other countries, and people are criticizing the international response to this war because they're saying we don't have the same response when it came to Syria and other countries. And I understand that, and I agree with that. I actually agree with the fact that this type of response should exist in all of the countries. We should respond this way to any kind of injustice in the world. However, this is particularly scary because Russia is a world power. They do have a huge nuclear arsenal, and this could very quickly escalate, as we saw in World War II. It's very similar parallels to World War II. And as you know, those who are not familiar with history are destined to repeat it. And as somebody in their mid-40s looking at this, and after everything I've learned about World War II, this is particularly a scary situation because this could lead to a third world war. And we know that a third world war is not optional, whether you want to be involved or not. Even if you're an innocent country that has a neutral stance, any kind of fallout, any kind of nuclear reaction can have long-term effects on the environment, on the economy, on everything else. So with that, this is scary. And I wanted to just kind of highlight some of these heroic acts in this episode of the Shit Podcast. I think all these people are the shit. And I want to thank you guys, because you guys are the shit, for listening to the podcast. So thank you for joining me. Please, if you have other videos, other examples, leave comments. You can leave them on my YouTube page, or you can go into my Facebook group, Los Cagadienses. I read all the comments. I try and respond, even if it's just a like. Sometimes I'll comment back. But thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for following the podcast. Thank you for listening to the last episodes. We recorded in Santa Barbara. We didn't have the best equipment, but we still didn't want to leave you without an episode. So thank you for responding. A lot of people liked it. So thank you very much. With that, you can find me on all social media as Tu Amigo Sam. That's TU Amigo Sam. And you can find me on YouTube as well as Tu Amigo Sam. And please like, subscribe, put the notification bell so that you can be on top of the next episodes. And you can find me on all platforms for podcast as Está Cagado Podcast, which is the Spanish version of the same podcast. This episode is exactly the same as the one I just did in Spanish because I think it's important to get this out in both languages at this time. With that being said, thank you very much for joining me. That's it for this episode of the Shit Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.